everybody. I'm Karen Hartglass. You're listening to It's All About Food. Yay. Thank you for joining me today. Okay, good one. It's a good one when we're talking about cookies. Cookies. I should have my little Cookie Monster puppet here, but I don't. But who I have with me is Jimmy Prude, who is the founder and CEO of Jimmy's Vegan, a wellness-focused company making zero sugar, gluten-free, and keto-friendly cookies that deliver a guilt-free indulgence. Jimmy's Vegan Cookies was created to reimagine how people snack, especially people impacted by diabetes and chronic health conditions. Jimmy's journey began as a project manager at Microsoft in Seattle, Washington, before returning to Chicago to work as an educator and later as a community organizer on the city's south side. There, he partnered with a nutritionist from the University of Illinois at Chicago to help residents in Auburn, Gresham, and Inglewood incorporate healthier plant-based foods into their daily lives. That hands-on experience sparked a deeper interest into food access, labeling transparency, and often obscured ingredients found in everyday snacks. Motivated to build a solution, he launched Jimmy's Vegan Cookies at the 79th Street Renaissance Festival in Auburn, Gresham, bringing 95 units of his original loaded vegan cookies and selling out in under 5 hours. What began as a small batch, community-rooted idea has now grown into a purpose-driven brand with national ambitions. And Jimmy's Vegan has since partnered with FOODWORKS, a proven on-site dining platform that connects communities through food. FOODWORKS highlights local, authentic, and ethnically diverse restaurants within client spaces, helping foster inclusion and cultural appreciation through every bite. And that's the bio. And welcome, Jimmy. Thank you for taking the time to speak with me today. I want to hear about your cookies.
Definitely. I appreciate you, and thank you for having me.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Okay. That was a mouthful, your bio.
It was. I think it needs to be shortened a little bit.
But there's so much more. Okay. So we learned a little bit. You were working at Microsoft, so you're probably a smart person. And then somehow you got into this nutrition thing. Okay. So there's a whole story there that we didn't get.
Right. Exactly. So I used to work at Microsoft. I was a project manager. I went out there after graduating college. I went to Howard University
Nice.
in Washington, D.C. So, I already had previous experience at Microsoft. I would intern and co-op, which is like taking 6 months off from school to go work and, enjoy life without being in school.
Right.
So, so fast forward, I transitioned from Microsoft back to Chicago and was an educator in the same neighborhood that became a community organizer in. So I taught for about a year and a half and transitioned into being the community organizer for the neighborhood. So my interest in health was always there, and one of those reasons is when I was younger, I used to be what would be considered an overweight child. All the way up into my early teens. So, I know what it is firsthand to have the challenges of even comprehending what it takes to either lose body fat or lose body weight, or what the types of foods you actually need to be focused on in order to achieve those goals. I would even take it a step further and say I didn't fully learn that until I was around 25. And that was during a time when I was at Microsoft. Then I had a nutritionist. They had an excellent wellness and health program. And the nutritionist that I had and the type of what they called weight management, it was called 20/20 lifestyles. And what it did for me was it helped me understand what foods were best for my body. So being able to do a reduction or limiting certain foods over a period of time, be it 30, 60, 90 days, helped me understand what I needed to focus on for me, specifically my body type, in order to achieve those goals that I wanted. So I believe while I was in that weight management 20/20 lifestyle program, health program, I lost about 45 pounds.
Nice.
So that was the turning point for me. I didn't become vegan after that, but it helped me understand food in a completely different way. So when I came back to Chicago, my focus was on health and technology. always kind of had a health interest, but even more so when you're, hunkered down in a neighborhood setting and your focus is on, civic engagement and technology, broadband expansion. What are the other components to that? So the health piece was the component to the tech piece, and combining those two through digital literacy and bringing in, at the time, was a partnership that I had established with the University of Illinois at Chicago, where we did bring a nutritionist into the neighborhoods to work with residents on their systems in the actual school that I used to teach at. So the relationship there in the neighborhood as an organizer, and then from previously being a teacher, worked out because I was able to use the technology lab on the weekends to have residents come in and work directly with the nutritionist. So that proved helpful over a period of time, with residents incorporating small percentages of plant-based foods into their daily diet, or just better understanding the nutritional value of like a product label. So I know this is water, right? But let's just use this as an example.
Okay.
It's there's a nutritional label on here. If anything, there's just a label on here. But being able to understand nutritional value, what those ingredients were, be it the ingredients that had clarity or the ones that were obscure. Ingredients that were obscure, hard to pronounce, or never seen, we would actually have residents look those up so that they can be better informed on the intake of the ingredients that they were eating in some of their daily snacks, or foods. So that is kind of what brought me forward with Jimmy's Veganist, because I used to bring my own snacks to class, and they were and residents would always ask me if they could get some, and I would always say no at the time because there was I only
They're
bought
mine.
out, right? So that was interesting because so many people wanted to try them, and I ended up, letting folks try the ones that I had made. And at the time, I had no idea about it being even conceptualizing it to be a business, until I saw like the impact, and that's when I had thought about it. And I was already looking for a venture anyways, because I know what I wanted to do in life, and being a business owner was one of them. In what area? Back then it was technology. I would have never thought it would have been in the health space, but I see the combination of the two now. Ended up starting that, and I launched the product at the 79th Street Renaissance Festival in Auburn, Gresham. And from there, I did really well and was able to work with the local management at the Walgreens in the same neighborhood, which met the objective of being able to provide a healthy product in the same neighborhood that these residents lived in, and in some cases, not many worked in, and having it accessible. So just being able to fulfill that small piece of a mission, based on that nutritional partnership with U of I, was very helpful. And that's when I started providing product to the local Walgreens, and I just kind of grew from there. It's been hard but fair. It's been a nice journey. I'm grateful, and I'm still on it. I'm still on it. I'm working right now.
And where's the vegan part? Where's the vegan component?
So the vegan part came in when I realized that, for me personally, is that the question, like more so personally, where did the vegan come in? So I chose plant-based because I started to see the effects of dairy in my mid-20s on my body. But again, this is all educational, right? I did not know that over a long period of time, those same issues that I had when I was younger just affected me more as I got older. So as I was getting older. So I ended up giving up the dairy for health reasons. But I also saw, when we look at it from a food supply and manufacturing perspective of like animals, you tend to shift your lenses a little bit and get a little bit of a broader perspective of how, what some would call farm to table, outside of the more, I guess you can say, modern use of it. Maybe the organic, outside of the humane, right? That farm to table piece wasn't so humane, right? And in it not being so humane, we have other factors that come into play around you know, if we're dealing with food supply, it's supposed to be the safest aspect of what allows people to have nutritional foods, you know, available to them. And that can sometimes be compromised from the farming level, agricultural side, early on, if the right measures aren't in place to kind of control that. So understanding what was being put into certain foods or into the food supply that were deemed safe, but maybe not enough evidence or research on, made me change my outlook on how I consume foods personally. And from there, that's when I also noticed the physical changes, not, you know, not just aesthetically, but also psychological, internal. I could speak to it, but let's see. I think the best way to say this would be clarity of mind and a conscious understanding of my body. And being able to have that clarity of mind, conscious understanding of the body, allowed me to make better decisions, more conscious decisions. And benefiting from that, that was the route that I took, because as an organizer and working with the people that I worked with, people who were impacted by, you know, type 1, type 2 diabetes, high rates of obesity, and other chronic illnesses, some stemming from lifestyle, some stemming from food, lifestyle, combination of the two. Some are more so genetic, born with, you know, born into type 1 diabetes. You see these things and you see the difference that a plant-based lifestyle can have on people who are impacted by those ailments. It's not a cure-all, but it definitely is a way and a path towards a better lifestyle for most.
Okay, great discoveries.
Mm-hmm.
I want to add a few things. So I've been a vegan since 1988 and a vegetarian for a lot longer. I am not a fan of dairy products. I know how most people on the planet should not be or cannot consume dairy. People of Asian and African descent specifically have issues with consuming dairy, and it's just like the Northern Europeans that seem to be able to do it without much problem. But aside from that, dairy is one of the most environmentally irresponsible industries, the dairy industry. It's devastating on the environment. It's horrifically cruel. And there's plenty of scientific studies that show that dairy isn't really nutritious for us, and it's not the best source for calcium, and it's linked with all kinds of other problems. So boo, 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 boo to dairy.
Exactly.
And we don't need them to make delicious cookies.
No, not at all. Absolutely not.
And you mentioned nutritionists, and I think it's great when people want to learn about nutrition. And unfortunately, it's something that is not in our normal upbringing or education. Maybe it used to be to some degree with home economics when that used to be a thing, but we do need to know more about nutrition. Most people know so little about what's in their food and where their food comes from. Children today don't even know where food comes from. It's really quite sad. And we have a food system that is broken, if we even have one. So it's important when people like you come along and decide you can't solve everything, but you can solve a piece of it. And what you are doing, I believe, will ultimately spread when people learn about your product and find that it's not only delicious, but nutritious. So all of that is a good thing. And you mentioned being overweight as a child, and unfortunately, that's become the norm today.
Right.
You know, when I was young and somebody was overweight, unfortunately, people would make fun of them and they'd be uncomfortable. And now, you know, body shaming is not acceptable, and we have to accept everyone, no matter what size they are. And that's fine. I don't have a problem with that, but we should not be normalizing unhealthy eating.
I agree.
So there's that.
Yeah. I think growing up, growing up and being a chubby kid, I remember always monitoring my weight or looking at my weight and trying to figure out like, how do I knock this down? Okay, of course, every kid has their, you know, their teasers when they're in school, someone that's teasing or someone that says something. Uh, of course, those things aren't right. But I do remember individuals that I remember kind of looking up to who were active, who went to the gym, who ate right, and they were older than me. And I
Mm.
just remember asking them, like, what is it that I should do? How can I do, you know, what type of weight should I be lifting? Imagine me saying, what type of weight should I be lifting as a kid? Like, he's probably just like, go lift some weights. But, you know, being able to understand how to lift weights accurately or how to exercise, you know, the correct way. So I think these questions don't necessarily get asked by most young adults, or not young adults, young teenagers.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been fortunate over the years to work in some aspects of education, and I I work with students. Like a year ago, I worked with students that were in a setting, high school type of setting, and you know, they would ask me, you know, Mr. Jimmy, how do you work out? And I have no problem in telling them. I would motivate them. When one student that I worked with, and for full transparency, a part of, you know, not only just running Jimmy's Vegan, I also made sure I made time to keep a space to work in education. So I did work in the Chicago public school system as what they call a seeker, special education classroom assistant. And
Mm.
I would work with special needs students, be it someone that's considered diverse learning or someone that may have autism or high anxiety, or maybe a combination of the three. But also learning either at the same pace or in some cases just in a different way than what we would, you know, consider the majority of the students. But the students that I worked with, both diverse learners and what would be students that would be maybe uncategorized as non-diverse learners, would ask me, you know, what do I eat? How do I exercise? I live in a neighborhood where there is a local gym, and I see some of those students at the gym, and I've worked out with some of those students. So I think it helps when we have community wrapped around health and wellness. So I understand where I was when I was their age, and I would I make sure that if any question is asked to me around any aspect of health and wellness, I'm going to provide an answer that was not provided to me when I was 16, 17, or 18. I'm going to encourage them in a way that I wasn't necessarily encouraged. But these are the things that I didn't necessarily see from some aspects of larger community. So I say that because I think it's important that if we have our young teenagers, young adults that do ask the question, and we are living a particular lifestyle, doesn't mean they have to be vegan, because some culturally can't fit that into their lifestyle at this point, because they live in a home that may value the culture, tradition, and norms of the foods that they eat daily.
Sure.
So yeah, all that to say is that I agree with you. I do see a lot of young students that are young men and women who are interested, who are asking the questions, and in some cases just don't have the right guidance. They want to, just the same thing that I observed when I did the 79th Street Renaissance Festival and launched the product. One of the questions that I received was, I know it's vegan. I know it's vegan, but I don't know how to live the lifestyle. And I remember saying, well, you don't have to live the lifestyle. It's just a matter of understanding that it's a plant-based food and that it's a healthier snacking option. And I think I don't have to, you know, evangelize vegan to everybody. It's really just about making sure they're just abreast of health and wellness.
I made some notes before when you were talking and I forgot to mention them. So I'm going to take care of those and then we can move on. You mentioned diabetes, type
Yeah.
1 and type 2. And we know now that most cases of type 2 diabetes, adult onset diabetes, which unfortunately now many children have, is reversible with diet and lifestyle.
Right.
And type 1 is a different type of diabetes. And there have been some studies that have connected the consumption of dairy products in the pregnant mother with the child getting type 1 diabetes. So there's not a lot of studies out there, but there are some studies connecting nutrition diet with the onset of type 1 diabetes. Unfortunately, we say that that's something that isn't preventable and only manageable, but it may be preventable.
Interesting. I heard something similar around gluten intake with pregnant women as well, contributing to type 1 diabetes as
Yeah.
well. So
Wow.
that's interesting to
Yep.
understand.
Hopefully we'll figure that out.
Yeah.
And then you were talking about with your own individual self and finding solutions for your food related issues. I wanted to say, yes, we are all individual, but I also want to say, and this is something Marion Nissel always says, and that is for the large part of what we consume, humans really need to be consuming the same thing. There are some fine points to each of us individually, but for the most part, we shouldn't be getting most of our calories from ultra processed foods. We need to be consuming predominantly plant foods and predominantly minimally processed and whole plant foods. So, that's the foundation. And at the very minimum, most people should know that, and they don't. Okay. Yeah, good. Okay. Now, the other thing is people love to snack.
Yes.
People like sweets and treats, and we've kind of abused the whole treat scene where people today can have anything they want at any moment for the most part. And then there are a lot of people who may have numerous challenges financially and with opportunities. And unfortunately, the highly ultra processed foods are relatively cheap. And so that might be something that they go to, which compromises their health. It compromises their clarity. You talked about how you improve your nutrition and you got more clarity. And it's kind of like it's a very dangerous loop that reinforces the bad habits. So Jimmy Prude comes along with his cookies. Tell us about them.
So yeah, I think one of the things about having the product is it's not processed, right? I personally don't believe in a lot of processed foods. Maybe once in a while. I get that, there's a level of like cultural competency we have to have depending on where we're at to not necessarily stand out from the rest all the time, but be able to participate somewhat with some limitations. But as far as Jimmy's Vegan, I wanted to create a product that one that had natural ingredients, and also that was diabetic friendly. So when I originally created Jimmy's Vegan cookies, it was made with agave. So even then, the consumers for low sugar, but wanting to create a product that was low in sugar for diabetics was always in mind. So we fast forward over the last 4 or 5 years, especially between 2019 and 2021, where that's when I made the shift in the product to be a zero sugar product, because understanding how the market was not necessarily trending, but leaning towards with regards to consumer behavior. And also consumers, and I don't want to say consumers as if everyone's, like they're not individuals, not humans, but the shift for people in their lifestyles during COVID and after COVID started to tick a little bit towards zero sugar and low sugar based products, which is good for me because that's exactly where I wanted to be anyways, even when we had agave in the product. So being able to transition the product from having agave to using a stevia-based product with also what we call FOS, and FOS is really what we're putting back into the product. The industry calls it a functional build back. So as you take something out, what are you building back into the product? For us, it was taking away the agave, using FOS as a little bit of a sweetener, but also a fiber build back. So where we go from 2 grams of fiber, we're at 6 grams of fiber now per cookie. Where we're also achieving the same flavor profile as before, if not slightly better. Where we used whole wheat, we're now using an almond-based flour to achieve the results of a higher quality product that's like meeting the needs of, you know, people who are gluten-free, keto-friendly, and interested in you know, making health conscious decisions around low sugar or no sugar. So the keto friendly part kind of just stumbled upon me. I wasn't creating a product for keto friendly individuals, but because the nature in which the product is now made, it lends itself to be a keto friendly product. So in that, not over processing, not using raw materials that are highly processed, we're using even as one of our products in the product is a 0 sugar granola. So even that is a conscious decision to establish a foundation within the product that brings it nutritional value, but also without the sugar. Where traditionally, when you are eating granola, you can, in some cases, depending on the brand, consume a lot of sugar.
Absolutely. When we talk about refined sugar, it's a white powder,
Yes.
not unlike other dangerous white powders like cocaine.
Right.
And I've spoken with Dr. Susan Pierce Thompson, who has a program called Bright Line Eating. I've spoken with her numerous times, and she will openly talk about her problems with addictions over her life, and how her strategy is a 0-1, yes, no. You know, the food she knows that she can't handle, she can't eat them.
Right.
And so when she counsels people, especially those who show a very addictive profile, it's totally no to refined sweeteners like sugar, which may even be more addictive than cocaine.
That I did not know, but I can see it. I can see how that can be. It's good. It creates a sensory in on the tongue, in the body. So I can definitely see how it's addictive. It's more addictive than cocaine. Yeah.
I don't have an addictive personality, thankfully, but I like to do what's best for me healthfully.
Right.
And it's been almost a year, not quite, one more month. I started last July on an SOS free diet, which is no salt, no oil, and no sugar.
Okay, nice.
It is nice. And I make cookies.
Yeah.
I make cookies without sugar. I like to use dates. That's my thing.
Well, I think dates are great. I mean, they're highly fibrous.
Yes.
High in fiber, and their nutrition. They're high in nutritional value.
So yeah. But when you want to go commercial and when you want to make a lot of something, that adds a few extra levels of challenges when you're choosing ingredients.
It does. So, you know,
and often you have to make compromises.
True, very true. But if you do them in a way where you keep the customer, you know, your primary customer in mind, you can make like really good informed decisions on the type of raw materials to purchase to create the product that you want. So you're right. I've been asked, Jimmy, why don't you use date syrup? But you know, that can be very challenging to come across. And I think it's sometimes, you know, date syrup is great. I use date syrup. I'm actually starting to replace some aspects of, you know, sugar-free syrup with some date syrup, and that's been great. So especially for like my pancakes for breakfast. So it's just challenging from a procurement perspective, and you also have to take into consideration flavor profile, sensory. You know, it's very pungent dates when you break it down into a syrup. So what does that do? It's almost like a molasses type of.
It has a caramel kind of flavor.
So
I love it, but it is it's a specific flavor. It's not just sweet.
Exactly.
Mhm.
So it's like how do you balance these things out? And there has to be an even balance when, depending on the type of product that you're making or your goal, you want to have everything balanced, so that sensory can come out ahead, and that there's no inconsistencies in the product. It's not about what we want at the end of the day, the maker. It's about what the customer wants. So that's how I look at things. And you can source pretty good ingredients if you keep your customer uh, the main focus and not get too eccentric with the materials to create a product.
Okay, there are a lot of critics out there, more critics than complimentary people, I think.
Yeah.
We like to complain. But what a lot of food critics don't realize
Mhm.
is the difficulty it is to create a food product or to run a restaurant. And I always like to say to those that are complaining, have you ever considered doing it yourself? Do you realize what it takes? So let's talk about, from your perspective, how you got started. Did you start in your home creating this recipe? And then where did you go from there?
Yeah, I did. So, like I said earlier, when I was having those sessions on the weekends and doing the digital literacy for what they call the city of Chicago's technology broadband initiatives, I would bring my own snacks. I made those at home. And yes, it started off in the kitchen. I would have to do batch preparation. And I think the one thing, even though I was in the School of Business and I studied business, that doesn't mean just because you went to business school, you get a foundation, but that doesn't mean you fully understand the world of business. And
Yeah.
I think, you know, once I began engaging the development of the product, there were these foundational things that I understood. You know, uh, I knew how to register the business. I knew that I needed to potentially get trademarks, but I knew that that was a cost. Um, I knew that I had to source material. So it's like when you're in your kitchen, you're sourcing from like your Costco's of the world, your Sam's Clubs of the world, and maybe even your local grocer, because you're not even conceptualizing what large volume would look like and where do you even go after that. So for me, starting off in the kitchen is how it all started. And then from there, growing into a commercial kitchen once there was some demand and being able to get opportunities to supply the local Whole Foods in the Chicagoland area for a period of almost 4 years.
Mm.
So you're in a commercial kitchen, and now you're saying, okay, I just can't keep going to the Costco's of the world and the Sam's Clubs of the world. Who are my local suppliers? I had to realize I'm in Chicago. I'm in the food capital of the world.
Right.
Believe it or not, this is the major supply route, right? You have distributors that deliver products all across the country, suppliers that provide raw materials to so many different people, manufacturers. So I had to start digging into my backyard and understanding who were the people that were there and who were around me, and that was a learning process. Being able to meet with uh, production facility owners, uh, getting their insight, learning from them, and then getting recommended to other people, um, learning how to scale up to a small scale manufacturer to produce the product so I can focus on other things, which didn't work, right? So
Right.
I stayed in a commercial kitchen until I couldn't be there anymore. And so, yeah, you do start small. You start your kitchen, you start your commercial kitchen. There was even a moment where the commercial kitchen, there was an issue at a commercial kitchen, and I leveraged a church kitchen that was considered a commercial kitchen. So it was a friend of mine, and he is a pastor of a church here in Chicago on the South Side. And he said, Jimmy, he's like, you don't need to worry about that. He's like, we have a commercial kitchen. It's
Nice.
inspected. And he said, you can use it whenever you want. And I remember having to use that kitchen for about a week in order to fulfill orders. And that was really helpful until I was able to go back to the commercial kitchen. So, even from that point and then going to a manufacturer, it is a challenging process. The world of business is completely different. The world of food and beverage is like going to a whole nother college. And, I enjoy it. It's challenging. Doesn't mean I always like the challenges, but I do like surviving. And because of that, I'm more prone to learn everything that I need to learn in order to meet the overall mission, vision, and goal of the business. And also my own personal goals that I have for myself within the business. What does it mean to be a founder? What does it mean to be a business owner? A lot of these things are easy to say, but maybe because I'm more hard on myself, but I challenge myself against those things all the time. Am I being a good business owner? Am I being a good founder? What does it mean to be a CEO of your own business, your own company? Have I earned the title? There are moments, and I'll be honest with you, there are moments where I may wake up and say, am I fulfilling the role of a CEO? And some may say, that's crazy, Jimmy, because you do this every day, you're growing, you're right here, you're doing this. But I think these are things that help me personally keep myself in check and stay learning and, growing.
Well, I wish more CEOs of major corporations were asking themselves the same questions. I don't know. I'm assuming that the laws in Chicago are similar to here in New York City and perhaps all over the country. But here in New York, you cannot sell food that isn't prepared in a commercial kitchen. So during COVID, for example, I know there were a lot of people that were getting creative at home and creating things, but it isn't legal to do something in your home and sell it to people unless your home has a commercial kitchen that's been inspected by the state and given permits.
Absolutely.
And we also have a course that you have to take in New York in order to be in a food business. And that teaches you all about the health aspects, the cleanliness of your kitchen, and how it needs to be cleaned every day after you finish your work. It's very complicated. It's not impossible, but you have to know a lot of things. You can't just be, taking your food processor and and making some cookies. And then there's packaging.
Right. Absolutely. So yeah, no, you're absolutely right. So New York is slightly different. I don't know all the laws in New York around food and beverage, but I do know that state of Illinois did pass a law where you could have a small scale operation out of your home, but it needed to be certified by an inspector first, if I remember. If I remember correctly. So there were individuals that are on a very small scale that were able to do that. Now, does that mean they can bring their product to a retailer or maybe somewhere more commercial? I'm not sure, maybe depending on who the retailer is. But yeah, absolutely. There's a lot that goes into it. Like I think at the commercial kitchen level, you're definitely dealing with safe serve certifications, food safety, sanitation, licensing, where you're right, where you're like, hey, I just can't use this blender. I just can't put my things into the blender and begin the process. Like you have to sanitize, even though you may have cleaned it and it was sitting for a few days, you still have to take that, clean it again, and prepare it for use. There is a lot that goes into the what we call safe serve certification, food safety and sanitation licensing, so that you understand how to prepare food for outdoor events, how to prepare food inside a commercial kitchen, what not to cut meat on, how long you need to leave meat out if you are using meat or any type of vegetables. But as you progress from there, it becomes a little bit larger around HACCP and FSMA, which is like hazardous control protocols on the federal side, and Food Safety Modernization Act, where if you are a manufacturer and you are packaging foods, you have to package them in a way that's safe. And you have to, of course, prepare the food in a way that's safe. I used an example like if you're sifting through beans that you buy and you might have a pebble, and most people, my mother used to sift through beans and take out all the pebbles. In today's time frame, you should still do some of those things, but because we have HACCP and FSMA and the rules and regulations around food preparation and packaging is kind of strict, it's to eliminate those pebbles from even being in the packaging in the first place, because it presents some aspects of like a safety hazard to the consumer or to the customer. So those are the things that when you are onboarding into a manufacturer, and most manufacturers now are pretty strict around being able to make sure that they are in compliance with HACCP and FSMA. And those are the industry standards that allow the consumer to have and the customer to have a what they call a peace of mind. And also from a legal perspective, when you're producing food, you don't want any issues. It's to protect you from recalls. And if there are recalls, there's protocols in place to manage those things. So yes, on the larger side, FSMA, HACCP, they all play an important role in the packaging of a product and being able to sell a product out in the market.
I'm just going to take a moment and say, this is my opinion,
Okay.
but I think regulations at the state level and the federal level are very important for our food system. They're very important for our environmental safety. They're very important to protect many precious rights that all of us have.
Right.
Yeah, a government is a democratic government that isn't corrupt is very important, and we're certainly not there right now, and in some ways we're getting away from it, but I think these regulations are really important. There's been a whole history in the United States and probably around the world of all kinds of things that happen when people consume food that has not been prepared correctly or has some issue with it. I've been doing this podcast since 2009. I've spoken to numerous authors. We've talked about the history of bread. We've talked about the avocado. We've talked about all kinds of food, and every food has had issues that either rules weren't followed or we learned from our mistakes to make them better and safer for all of us. So I believe in all that stuff.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, you have to in order to have the peace of mind. Yeah, I agree.
So I'm just curious because I've got all kinds of appliances here in my non-commercial kitchen at home. And I'm just wondering what you've used and maybe you've changed over time to make your cookies.
Yeah. So in a kitchen, when you're in a kitchen, so how I started off, right? So it's you're creating your mix. Your mix can be very doughy depending on what you have in it. And I used a rolling pin. And you know, I would roll the dough out and shape the product. My product had a specific shape. They're square cut products. So they're 2x2s and 3x3s. The 3x3s are the ones that are packaged now, the individual single serves. But yeah, they're square cut. So I would have a square cut mold. So as the dough was rolled out, you know, with a rolling pin, I had a different type of rolling pin. I didn't use a wooden rolling pin. It was a little bit
a
more.
Wine bottle.
No. Although I did try that just to see if there was anything to it one time. I don't know. It is.
I've used them when I didn't have a rolling pin and I needed to roll, but yeah.
You would have to like put your hand on top and go like this. Yeah, no, I did that just for fun one time just to see. But yeah, I definitely use a rolling pin and then a cutting mold, and then from there, you know, kind of cheat them and bake them off. So I guess gradually as you go into a manufacturer, you're looking for that same process, but on a larger scale. So there's a few ways to achieve that. There's people who can there's manufacturers who can roll it out and then cut them into the shape that you want according to like the specifications. So imagine like a larger table that's like flat. You know, it's like what they call like a band line, and you have your equipment. Some equipment are kind of like more, how can I say? Well, there's different molds, right? There's different molds to shape the product. So the equipment may have a rolling pin that's kind of like your mold, and it cuts the product into the shape that you need. And then there's other aspects of what they call like extrusion methods, where it gets just put in like dough. Like instead of rolling your dough out, it's just put into kind of like a funnel. And then the funnel goes through an extruder, and the extruder can shape your product into the size that it needs to be based on the mold that is on the extruder. So there's a few different ways. So I think that's the challenging part when you're finding a manufacturer is capability. So you need to be able to match capabilities with what you originally started with, but also leave room for a newer way of developing your product to achieve the same method. I mean, to achieve the same output. So yeah.
How many people are making square cookies?
Not many. I mean, there's a lot of square bars, but not a lot of square cookies. I know Lorraine, what is it, Lorraine? The shortbread.
Oh yeah, with chocolate coated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's a couple, but not many. It's
Right.
yeah.
The Fig Newton is square.
Yeah, technically, yeah.
The classic Fig Newton. Yeah. Now, what about, you said your product is gluten-free. So does that affect where you're working, the commercial kitchen you're using, so that it's not contaminated?
Right. So we're not in the commercial kitchen anymore, but even if you were in a commercial kitchen, you would have to be in an area that is, some commercial kitchens are set up to be gluten-free. Like there's certain sections where only the gluten-free products are made. And you can't do any type of production of a gluten-free product in a traditional area where there may be contaminants of wheat. So you can't have the cross contaminations. Inside of a manufacturing facility, it's the same way. So there are certain sections inside of the facility that are designated to be for allergen productions or gluten-free production. But you do have to have the right types of certifications, or your gluten-free certification, in order to be able to produce a gluten-free product. And then there is some aspects of being able to have your raw material suppliers, depending on their level of actually not even depending. Some of your raw material suppliers, if you are a gluten-free product, should have a gluten-free certification, or have very, very, very low aspects of anything that would, cause cross-contamination.
So now you're in a particular facility.
So yeah, the product is produced at a manufacturing facility so that we can continue to grow and scale and meet the needs of customers. A part of that is rolling out to some of our, a part of that is fulfilling B2B, filling the needs of B2B. So some of the customers that we work with in like food service, but also us continuing to grow back to the customer through the onboarding to Amazon. So there was a time where I did do online sales for a few years, and that worked really well. But it's just continuing to grow that can be a little bit challenging. So understanding that there was a better way of getting the product to customers. So now we're at that stage of being able to get the product to customers through Amazon over the next couple weeks, or within the next week. So that's what we're doing right now. So I'm actually in the rollout phase of that while still working with some of our food service customers.
And tell me about FOODWORKS. What is that, and how has it helped you?
Yeah, FOODWORKS has been extremely helpful in being able to bring the product more local into some of their business units that they work with, be it corporate offices, dining services, and corporate offices. What I mean by that is like maybe cafeteria services inside of those corporate offices, or dining services inside the corporate offices, and having an opportunity for people locally in their business units that they service to have access to the product, or at least bring some aspects of awareness to the products for them to continue to purchase. So FOODWORKS is a good partner because they do recognize the benefits of local producers, and being able to meet the needs of the customers where they're at. Food service, dining, corporate office. So they're really good at that, and it's been really nice working with them, and a good opportunity in growing the business out on the B2B side. So I look forward to the continued growth with FOODWORKS and their business units that they work with.
Okay, so if we wanted to get some Jimmy's vegan cookies, soon they'll be available through Amazon.
That's correct. So next week, we are projecting for that to be on Amazon. We've already have our Amazon set up. It's just a matter of them being sent to the fulfillment center and being registered, and people having at it through themselves. So that is one of the things we've been looking forward to over the last 6 months to a year, was growing this out and coming to this point that we're at right now. I'm actually working right now. I'm at the facility where they're being produced. So, making sure that, logistically everything is in order for them to get to their final destination for Amazon.
Do you have your cookies for breakfast sometimes?
Every now and then. I do eat them. I try not to make it a habit. I do enjoy the vegan cookies. I like the loaded vegan, which is the vegan dark chocolate chip. It's made with granola, zero sugar granola, chocolate chips, of course, and if you're familiar, MCT coconut oil.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. So I do enjoy them every now and then for breakfast. And then we have the dark berry vegan, which is our cranberry orange dark chocolate. And that too is low sugar to zero. Well, that's a zero sugar cranberry with vegan dark chocolate chips and granola as the base.
Yeah. Very good. And what have people said about your products? I'm sure you've heard from a lot of people. Maybe you've changed some people's lives.
People for the most part enjoy it. I actually like to just listen because that's where I get the feedback, and that's where I tend to kind of reflect. So I enjoy it. I enjoy the work more when the feedback is beneficial. It lets me know that we're on the right track. And if there is adjustments that need to be made, I do listen for that through the customers as well, either through a review or through someone that reaches out to me via email. So those are, it's exciting to hear. It's exciting to hear. It keeps me grounded.
Okay, you can't please everybody.
True.
And there are always going to be critics. Your product is gluten-free and sugar-free.
Yeah.
And it's made with almond meal, you said.
Almond flour.
Almond flour. So it's not nut-free.
Correct.
Okay. Do you have any thoughts about making a seed flour cookie instead of an almond flour cookie?
Not at the moment. Again, you can't please everybody.
Okay, can't please everybody.
Yeah, but there are some producers out there that I do believe do nut-free, cookies.
I eat a lot of nuts. I'm a nut.
Yeah, that's not necessarily the direction right now. If it's something that is worthwhile, maybe, but I like the direction we're in.
Yeah, we do use a lot of seeds here. I even make some cookies sometimes with seed base. Yeah.
Right.
It wouldn't be that difficult for you. Not that I'm telling you should do it, but then you would need to have another space that was free of nuts. And I think that's the harder challenge, not
Exactly.
using the seed itself, but finding a place that isn't contaminated with nuts. Yeah.
Now, that's an allergen-free facility. Yes, definitely.
Right. It's a whole nother certificate.
And more costs.
Okay.
Would you?
So
I'm sorry.
no, you go.
I was going to ask. You said you do a lot of seeds, and are you kind of like what some would say raw vegan, where you incorporate a lot of raw foods? And
That's a good question. So back in 2004 to 2005, I did eat an all raw diet.
Okay.
And one thing led to another, and an all raw diet wasn't right for me.
Mhm.
But I do acknowledge that humans need to eat a lot of raw foods, and at least 50% of our food should be raw.
Right.
And I'm a big fan of Dr. Joel Fuhrman. All my listeners know that. And his diet, which he named a nutritarian diet, and his acronym is G-BOMBS: greens, beans, onions, mushrooms, berries, seeds.
Okay.
And so we should be eating a very large salad every day.
Right.
And I do that. And then I eat a lot of fresh fruit. So there's a big raw component, but I also eat a lot of beans. And I understand there's big health benefit in beans. I love beans. There's like 45,000 varieties of beans, and I love discovering new shapes and sizes of beans. And as I mentioned, I've been vegan for a long time, and I've recently incorporated this crazy SOS free, salt, oil, and sugar free. And I love it, but it's challenging. But I do make plenty of treats because we all love treats.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And we can do it without salt, oil, and sugar, but it's harder to do it in a commercial environment. I recognize that. And I bow to you for creating a pretty healthy product.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, for me, it's been 16 years, and I try to mix it up. I do a little bit of raw every now and then. Not all the time, but maybe a couple times out the year. When I was younger, I think I was a little overkill on kind of doing raw food vegan, where I would be kind of like every other month, which was nice, but it was also, I realize now, it was part of my discovery of understanding like what was working for me. So yes, I too consume a lot of beans. I just found out what a lupini bean was a couple months back, so that's starting to be incorporated. And most of my vegan lifestyle is kind of like East Asian and Mediterranean, but without the oils. So I'm right there with you on little to no oil.
Right. Good. Yeah. It's an ongoing process. We're always learning. And the science continues to change. It's really difficult to get information out to our society and culture, but we do the best we can.
Right. Absolutely.
And yeah, there we are. So let's wrap this up.
Okay.
Jimmy Prude, thank you so much for joining me on It's All About Food, and I'm looking forward to trying Jimmy's vegan cookies.
Oh, definitely. And I appreciate you having me. I encourage everyone who's probably listening and viewing to visit our website, jimmysvegan.com. Our Instagram is Jimmy's Vegan. Our Facebook is Jimmy's Vegan. And feel free to follow me or check me out on LinkedIn as well.
Okay, so can people pre-order the cookies or not quite yet?
They won't be able to pre-order on Amazon, but we're going to be putting a message up on the main website. As soon as it's registered, people will be able to order directly from our website, which will pretty much take them directly to Amazon, or just add it to their Amazon Prime if they're Amazon Prime member. So I would say over the next few days to 1 week, just visit our website and we'll keep you posted. Our Instagram account and Facebook accounts are being updated around this rollout, so you're going to find out what's going on anyways.
Okay, awesome. Well, we wish you all the best. Thanks. It was a joy meeting you, and I love hearing about what you're doing.
Oh, I appreciate you. Thank you.
You're welcome. Everybody, that's another show, and have a delicious week.